Recording in progress.
Welcome into the latest episode of Betting the Pitch with a very sick at the real_G Warner, maybe sicker than I am mentally, fighting through whatever the heck it is. Don't think it's COVID, but I guess it exists in this world. Especially noteworthy as a assassination attempt was, completed or unsuccessful against the former president of the United States of America. Crazy day, but we're going to focus on the soccer pitch on this episode, going through the final Sunday of international soccer in this summer of 2024. Really sad to only have a few more hours with the Fox Sports crew. But, you know, it is what it is, c'est la vie. So I'll be going through the Euro 2024 sides, totals, to advance numbers or to lift the trophy, because there's no advancing. You either win the trophy on Sunday or you lose it. We'll also be coming with an ultimate best bet end of show, picking my favorite bet across the Euro 2024 final and the Copa America 2024 final as well. We're broadcasting live on YouTube today. I guess Twitter has changed some features, so I couldn't get live on there, but I will be uploading and, of course, linking to all the various platforms. You can usually find it, and will be available on all streaming platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. If you leave a 5-star review on those, that'd be huge. Plus, if you want to subscribe on YouTube, where you might be watching this live at the real_G Warner, plus that's the platform I'm using, or the name handle I'm using on Instagram as well. There will be a 1-minute video of the ultimate best bet cut up, chopped, and thrown online for this Sunday card. And that will be, the abridged version if you're really looking to get in and out very quickly and find my favorite bet on Sunday. It's been a really great tournament, really great summer so far, especially considering how poorly the Euro 2024 betting started for me. Had an incredible run. Match day 3 was, I think, 16-2, 89%. And I've got to still, summarize how the season has gone or the summer has gone and tally that all up. But it's been a great tournament. So thank you for all your support. Of course, if you're not a member of Patreon, check it out. Patreon.com/real_G Warner. It's a little slow time in summer, of course, but baseball is going to be taking a couple days off and then coming hard for the second half. Plus, we'll be putting out college football and pro football win totals. Plus, you should also expect some other podcasts from this Betting the Pitch podcast network. We'll be doing a Tuesday night futures focused edition of the baseball edition with that A. Brooks Bets. We'll be looking into kind of teams that we think are overvalued based on their performance the first half of the season, plus win totals and adjusted futures for divisions and maybe even World Series. And then also we'll be putting together a NFL podcast going through, I think it's going to start as a futures episode, but we might touch on season win totals as well. If you have any interest or something you'd like us to cover, please leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, and simply throw in the comment what you'd like to talk about. Or, of course, you can hit me up on Twitter, anywhere you can find me, of course, if you want to join my Patreon. And that'd be the best way to introduce yourself in a message directly to me, and I will cover whatever you're looking for. We'll dive into it. I know we have some questions about Cedar Rafaela as Rookie of the Year, and would love to have more questions to come up, because then it's not just me coming up and preparing for everything. So now that I see some people are live in here, might as well get into the card, and we'll start in Deutschland, in the Olympiastadion in Berlin, Germany. Good spot if you've ever wanted to party or something like that. And Spain faces England. I'm wearing a Getafe jersey today. I bought it mainly because, if you can see it, if you're watching on video, the Techno House or Techno Casa is an insurance company or something like that, used to sponsor Getafe, a suburban club of Madrid. But ultimately, that's the side I want. I don't have any English real gear to wear, unfortunately. I think I had a Manchester United jersey from way back when. Glad I've lost that along the years. Thanks, Mom, but wish we would have picked a different team then. I think she did buy me a Milan jersey though as well, so when she was traveling for work. So I guess I can't give her too much shade for that. But I guess if anyone's been listening to this podcast for, I don't know, the 4 years I've been doing it, you probably know that I'm not a big fan of the English nation, monarchy, dynasty, soccer clubs, anything pompous nature. Really happy. July 4th was an awesome day. Very happy to throw some tea in the ocean or in the harbor. But I try to be unbiased in all my picks, because bias does not help unless your favorite team seems to win and outperform, beat the market. So I'll be looking very closely at this Spain and England matchup. And I guess I'll start by telling you the lift the trophy odds, all lines quoted courtesy of BetOnline or SportsBetting.ag. If you do not have an account there at either of those sites, please follow the links in the podcast description, Apple Podcast, Spotify, or on YouTube, and you can get some free money to sign up for your first time deposit. And please let me know if you do that or if it doesn't work or something like that, and I will chase down my contacts over there. But good free money, and really important, I think, for the baseball season, because paying 10 cents juice on is a really, really big deal from the 20 cents you'll see at the bookmakers and other, and probably worse in state. Unfortunately, I live in Texas, so I'm not allowed to bet anything. But I think the 30 cents you see in New Jersey, for example, is disgusting, but that's part of the problem and why no one really should be buying DraftKings, their stock, in my opinion. But I'll start. So to lift the trophy, Spain are the favorite now, minus 148. Coming back on England is plus 128. Those numbers probably don't mean too much, but just to give an idea of kind of what those expectations are or where the number has moved. It's basically saying that Spain is about 60% to win. And of course, based on the split and the juice, so that's giving England about a 44% chance. So of course that climbs over 100 if you add them together, but that's really because every sports book is looking, casino is looking to have some sort of handle. In terms of where this number has moved, I've been tracking in pretty much every price move from the beginning since I first saw the number. Spain's only really climbed from minus 145 to minus 148. It's a really small change. The peak that I saw, or the max, was minus 150. So that's within 5 cents, not a huge change. England's climbed from 125, fell to 122, climbed to 130, and then down to the current 128. Not a huge change, really. But those sort of things will happen, of course. And I think I would imagine, so favorites usually get bet. And that's kind of my general thinking, I think, across all sports, really. So Spain have increased by 2%, and England have increased by 2.34%. So interesting there, I guess. But I guess from those opener numbers. And if you're handicapping where the money's coming, I mean, the English market is the strongest soccer betting market, I think, out there. I don't think it really only applies to English bookmakers and things of that nature. I think these, pretty much anyone who's betting soccer, I think the lines are essentially originated on Paddy Power or whatever sports book in the UK. I don't live there, so I don't know it that well. But everything seems to follow that. And we see in continental competitions across all of the Champions League, Europa League, Europa Conference League, now branded the Conference League, there's always English money coming in, always belief in English and really UK sides to outperform really their expectations. And usually they're wrong, in my humble opinion, especially after seeing how poorly the English Premier League did in those competitions this season. But this English side has looked horrible for every match they've played, essentially this entire tournament, yet they are still alive and in the final with a really good fighting chance to win their first trophy since 1966. Incredible, amazing, considering how talented they are, to how bad their history has been. And they did make it to the final in this exact tournament 3 years ago at their home stadium in Wembley Stadium, but they lost in penalties. So I'm hoping for something horrible to happen to England, but they've had a ton of, I guess I got to give them credit. I don't like to, but they've done a great job of fighting back from really tough scenarios. That incredible bicycle kick from Jude Bellingham was just monstrous. Obviously, probably be the most famous goal in England history, especially if they win this event. Certainly it will be. But from literally being almost eliminated by Slovakia to then facing probably the best team in this tournament, Spain has been so impressive so far. And of course, as I have more people coming in, if you want to throw some comments in, I'm not really sure if there's a way for me to see it, but if you do, I just click the button so it might show up. So throw something in there if you want me to discuss something a little bit different than sides, totals to advanced numbers. Happy to do that. Kind of just rolling through a boring Saturday night because I've been sick as a dog. But I guess to close that hole. So in other words, Spain and England are within 2% of the opener on where to lift the trophy, do that big celebration, all the confetti behind them. So not a huge move. I would expect probably England money to come in, even though they're the underdog. Usually the favorite gets bet to advance. But I think I have to pick one or the other. I don't know that's going to be a huge move. I don't really know who believes in England all of a sudden that didn't beforehand, or what would change your mind. Lineup should be pretty standard, I would suspect. but I'll get a little bit more into kind of my expectations of the teams when I get to the game lines. So I'll move now to this is using BetOnline current numbers, of course. Spain currently a quarter goal favorite right now, and this is at the Olympiastadion in Berlin. Big oval stadium, running track around it. Home of Hertha Berlin, who had fallen down, been relegated to the Schweizer Liga, the second Bundesliga. There's usually a big crowd there, but they're not very close to the pitch, and that does impact. I think it was a huge reason why Union Berlin were eliminated from Champions League this year, and really why they had a lot of problems. I think that kind of downturn or whatever in success, I think really also hurt them domestically, though they've certainly shown problems in the past playing and juggling two competitions. But I don't know, especially because I looked at trying to get tickets to this and potentially fly over just for maybe this final and then spend a little time out there in Germany afterwards, but or around, maybe hit Bratislava or something like that, because I didn't make it the last time when I was in Vienna. But tickets were really expensive, and I would expect, while we've seen huge fan bases in a lot of these stadiums going for like this entire tournament in Deutschland, it should be a pretty corporate event, I think. Kind of feels like the Super Bowl a little bit. So I don't know how much a crowd really is going to matter. Spain certainly hasn't been the loudest there. England's always loud, so that maybe there's an advantage. I don't think I would give England, and I'm not giving England any sort of home field advantage in the number I made. But ultimately, I do think that there's some probably a little bit of a tilt towards the English in the crowd. And that's a big deal for an underdog, especially. In terms of the numbers that I made initially, I was expecting total around 2 and England to be a quarter goal underdog. Voila, that's basically what we have. Current number, England a quarter goal underdog, minus 127 at BetOnline. That's climbed from minus 125 since I've been watching. Not a lot of movement, kind of hung there this whole time. Maybe a lot of expectations for that. Total is currently 2, minus 108. I have that moving around 4 cents. So I had it initially minus 106 at open under 2. Then it went down to minus 104. Now back to minus 108. So not a lot of movement either direction. I think people feel pretty comfortable with this number. And we'll see what ends up coming for this, I guess, final in the Olympiastadion in Berlin. So to break this down, I think I might as well, especially since there's only 2 games to talk to. I am going through Copa America's final on the Sunday, July 14th as well. Spain are, they've looked the best in this tournament. I think they're probably of good value to get here despite falling behind France early. I thought they were really impressive a lot of this tournament. Honestly, beat me probably more than any of the big favorites this entire event. So I've learned to respect them a little bit, though certainly my plays haven't suggested that, as I've been basically going against them a fair amount, and much to my chagrin, or has not been good for the ROI, which has been very good this tournament. But I think Spain, what they want to do, they're not the possession team that they were in the past. They are a little bit less ball dominant, but I think they do that in order to use their wings, so pace on the wings, to try to essentially, if they don't have the ball and they're not letting their opponent set up defensively the whole time, instead of trying to wear them out by just passing the ball around the whole time, the tiki-taka style that we saw from Spain in 2008, 10, 12, when they won every competition basically that was offered, won every trophy that was offered. Instead, in this type of Spain, they're trying to look to be a little bit more aggressive, and I think they're okay with losing the ball because they really want to find themselves in space. And their wings in Nico Williams, who's rumored to go to Barcelona from Athletic Bilbao. I'm not sure how that would happen, but because Barcelona's bankrupt, essentially. They didn't call the Camp Nou the Spotify Camp Nou for nothing. But that's what Spain's got on one wing. Other wing, they got Lamine Yamal, who, goal of the tournament, I think, to beat France, though ultimately Phil Foden has one of those, I think, if I'm not mistaken, from Premier League or Champions League or whatever. There's a lot of talent on those wings, of course. In terms of the striker, Alvaro Morata has kind of played a back role in this tournament. He's usually a great goal scorer for Spain. Certainly, he loves to play on the offside line and gets trapped offside a lot in the goals he scores. But he's one of the more scary finishers, I think, in this tournament and certainly in this final. In terms of the Spanish, the rest of the team, I think their defense can be had. But ultimately, I don't know that Harry Kane's the guy to do that. And I feel like the Spanish are probably going to win possession of the ball, and that's going to make it very hard for England to build up. What they're probably going to want to do is England will live on a counterattack, which before I get to England, I do think fits England fairly well in how they've played in this tournament. Spain, of course, everyone wants the first goal. That's probably going to determine this entire game and how it goes. Is who scores first, and then the response to that. If Spain score first, I expect they will still try to control the ball as much as possible and probably go back to their previous European versions or international sides under previous managers and try to squeeze England and keep the ball and really keep it out of England's possession. If England score first, though, Spain, I think, will become even more aggressive. And England, as they've shown against even the worst teams in this competition, they will play as conservatively as possible when they take the lead. I think that's a really great scenario for an underplay if England takes the lead. If someone has to score, you probably want it to be England. But I also am not certain that England will avoid defending or come out of their defensive structure until they're really desperate, because I think their manager's shown that he's very, very cautious, pragmatic. So pragmatism usually, I think, assumes some sort of intelligence in the way you play. I think Gareth Southgate is just basically mangina. No, I don't know. I think he's just too conservative and doesn't deserve his job. But for a nation that has so much self-belief and that has not really had any sort of international success, at least to their standards, he's done a great job for them. And I hope that he stays in the job because I love betting against him as a favorite. He's not here, though. And so I'll switch to England. Harry Kane, as we've seen from a lot of memes and videos on Instagram and such, I think a girlfriend mimicking and just basically repeating what her partner had said to her this whole event, and then him be like, wow, that's very insightful. Where are you getting this? He complained, and then she complained about Harry Kane dropping deep. That's usually what happens when they're not scoring goals, whether they're behind or they're just struggling to win matches. But like I said, England, if they score, they're going to play conservatively, and they're going to start out conservatively. So I think Spain need to score at least once in order to get England out. Of course, late in the game, England will push forward and bring on substitutes and forwards, and Ollie Watkins will probably get an earlier chance, especially after scoring that game winner against the Dutch, to really drive a knife through my heart. I do love Ollie Watkins, though, so I can't hate him forever, though that certainly did hurt. Big financial swing for me. But I think from an English perspective, they are not too proud to try to bunker in and defend here. And I think that's going to make it hard for Spain to score. In terms of the English defense, Southgate was saying that they're going to be a lot healthier now. Maybe that means they get Manchester United, whatever his name, to play left back, Luke Shaw, who's been a doubt to even get taken to the tournament. And then they've been hoping that he would get healthy as it went through. And then maybe that means Kieran Trippier can play his normal right back position because he's a right-footed player. Also in that Instagram video I saw with a woman just mimicking her partner and him being like, wow, you really know what you're talking about now. I think Luke Shaw's left back. I mean, he's certainly got some creativity, but I think will also be a little bit of a threat for Spain to monitor. Plus, will be better defensively, as England won't have to put a center back at right back essentially and play Kieran Trippier on the wrong side. That's all probably too deep in the X's and O's and probably not worth discussing until we see lineups anyway, which won't come out until an hour before game time or match kickoff. I think in terms of where this number has moved, barely on the quarter of England. Juice has climbed a little bit. I don't know necessarily it's going to move too much, but I do think if you want to bet England in this matchup, I think you want to take the quarter before you take any sort of risk that it falls to pick them. You could probably pay for an expensive one. And of course, then that brings up the argument of how much does juice really matter in sports betting? I would argue it matters an incredible amount. Though I think from my soccer plays, I'm always trying to save juice as much as I can, but it does seem to be a juice heavy sport. So that is a concern and something that you all need to monitor, and based on kind of what you're trying to shoot for in the sport or in the life of sports betting, if you want to just for action, or if you're trying to be really profitable and want to watch your pennies, nickels, and dimes, then certainly saving juice is important. And I guess I'm sort of saying that to myself as I talk. In terms of the total, we got more money, more juice on the over right now in terms of movement, how that's gone. It's kind of been going both ways. So initial money on the over, then some money coming back on under. I would expect that this will probably close 2. I can't imagine we'll climb to 2.25 or fall to 1 3/4. Don't know necessarily that'll be the case for the Copa America, which we'll get to right after this. But I think my biggest interest, I think England getting a quarter of a goal is pretty valuable. You don't see them as an underdog almost ever. I guess probably to France, maybe to Portugal, but probably not. Probably a pick 'em would be my expectation for that one. But against Spain, they're getting a quarter of a goal. So if you go to extra time, you have one half of your stake, or I guess what your return is on your stake. So that's a big deal, and certainly will be, I think, a really nice way to close this tournament out. But I think for my best bet in this game, I'm most interested in under 2. I just feel like there's a good chance this goes 1-1 to extra time. I think there's goalless is a very real possibility. And I also feel like whoever scores the first goal, good chance they escape with a 1-0 victory. Or you might see one of those empty netters late, and that will be the second goal to make you push, get you that free movie. So you don't lose any money, but you got to nearly win some, maybe. Certainly, I guess where the goals come from, you never know when penalties come, but there's been basically an ignorance of penalties until Harry Kane basically rolled around on the floor for 10 minutes against the Dutch. Probably was a penalty, but wasn't called on the pitch. So I'm disappointed that was overturned, especially because that was a huge financial swing for me, as I said, and especially made worse by Ollie Watkins at the end. But if that's not called, I wonder how England, if they would even be here in this tournament at this point. I was hoping they'd be a favorite, of course, England, because I basically bet against them this entire tournament with very good success. I guess eventually that free money wasn't going to come in forever. But so that's my interest on the Euro 2024. I don't see any comments coming in. So thank you for all of you who have shown up live, I think on YouTube tonight. But we'll be uploading on all the various other platforms and, of course, doing the ultimate best bet end of show. So now I'm going to move to the Copa America. I don't really think anything from third place game on Saturday night has anything to do with the Sunday matchup. But I'll start with the to lift the trophy odds, and Argentina currently a minus 190 favorite right now. That has climbed pretty significantly. From an initial minus 175 that got bet down to minus 165, and then has climbed essentially ever since. I need to do a little bit better job of calculating this, and then I'll tell you how much the move has occurred. So we've seen Colombia, they've climbed from 145, fell to 140, and climbed all the way up to plus 160. So $100 US dollar bet will win you 160. Colombia have climbed over 9%. Argentina up nearly 8%. One going the more expensive route, Colombia getting cheaper, essentially. Big difference from Spain and England moving 2% or so. I think you could explain that with you can't really blame a UK market in this one because there's no English team here, but certainly the Messi market might be just as strong, and maybe that's where the 7, almost 8%, or the 9% on the other side have come in, because people are, and potentially these sports books are begging for some money on the Colombians. Argentina were very fortunate to play first. I guess Spain were too, to tie that back in. And I think that allowed a lot of Argentines who hadn't already bought tickets to the final in Miami to go look and try to buy those, because Colombia were in a dead heat battle with Uruguay and we're not sure that they would make it. I think that makes an advantage to Argentina, especially considering how much ticket prices have climbed since this final of very, very big fan bases in Latin America and, of course, in Miami. I think that says something. I don't know necessarily, because Argentina basically everyone went to Qatar to see Messi win his World Cup. I think every Argentine booked a flight if they could. I think that was a big deal then. This is not the same, but I think it is important, and it would be a repeat title for Argentina in the Copa America. But I don't know necessarily how much that matters. I do think it means something. And crowd does matter, because Colombia were essentially willed to win by their crowd in Charlotte, of all places, in the semifinal. I had Colombia to advance and under, which was really nice and kind of amazing how that hit both sides, both legs. Didn't parlay them, but was very happy about it, but was surprised. I would expect Argentine money to hit, Argentina to get bet as the favorite still. Maybe there's a spot where Colombia get bought back, but I don't really see when that happens. I don't know necessarily that I have much of an interest in betting Colombia, because I do feel like Argentina has been the best team and the expected big favorite to win this competition. Certainly they've had a very easy run and have not looked that great against kind of worse teams this whole time. But the nice part is they were playing teams that were bunkered in. This might be a little bit more Colombia. Depends on their pride and kind of what they're trying to do in this matchup. If they're going to play and sit in like a lot of the other Argentine opponents did, But I feel like Colombia, they show that certainly when they take a lead, they will do it. And they did it with 10 men against Uruguay in Charlotte. But I'm just not sure that it's going to be the same type of setup, because I think Colombia is proud and believes that they can win this competition, and probably know that trying to sit in their own half the whole time and play for penalty shootout is not the best way to get past the Argentinian side. In terms of, I'll get now into this number here. We have Colombia, a quarter goal underdog, plus 110 right now. So that's pretty big. So Colombia initially opened a quarter goal underdog minus 125, same price as England, but have been steadily getting money coming in on Argentina. It makes sense that to lift the trophy or to win the competition odds have climbed 9% or so on the Colombian side, but around 8% on Argentines. The Colombians have that spread keeps climbing, and I do feel like we're going to get to a reasonably priced half of a goal spread on Colombia. That I'm not necessarily sure that's a buy price, because I'm perfectly fine with betting Colombia getting a quarter of a goal if you like that side, and just winning half of a bet if they draw and go to extra time, because you get odds on it. And of course, if they win in regulation, you win your full bet and take home a ton more without risking any more, basically. But if you're betting the half of a goal, that's, a perfect situation if you go to extra time, because that would be exactly all you could ask for, essentially. I think I'm probably expecting Argentina to win this trophy. I don't think they've been great. I don't think they're by any means that much better than Colombia. And I feel like Colombia has probably had a better tournament so far. But I just think it's so hard, because Argentina is so deep and so talented. They've won so much already that it's hard for me to want to be against them. So I think I'll go through similar to what I did for the European, the Euro 2024 final, just give you an idea of kind of what I'm thinking about with these teams. Before I do that, I might as well mention the total as well before I get that. So total's been moving all around. Currently, I'm seeing 1 3/4 just all the way to over, which is certainly a fall from 2. Initially, I saw even money on under 2 on Colombia, and that got bet pretty heavily to all the way to minus 125, minus 130. And now we see that current bet online number at 1 3/4 over under, which pretty much 2 is the lowest I'll go. You could certainly buy this total up to 2. It'll be expensive, but not, I think it's worth it, just based on how difficult it is to see an under 2 goals. You've literally no room for error under 1 3/4, unfortunately. One penalty and you're pretty much, of course you can still win when that happens, but I think it's going to be very, very hard. So I'd be looking, if you want to be an under player here, I'd probably wait if you don't have a price available, if you don't have alternate numbers. But I would expect some money to come in on the over, just because that's what most things happen, especially late night games and on Sunday nights when people are chasing before they have to pay their bookie. I think my initial guess is that we'll get back to 2. We'll probably stay very juiced. And so that's why sometimes betting in or getting in, or maybe even following my Patreon early, so you knew that I was playing something that might be helpful to you, to make sure you get the best number. I highly recommend that. Patreon.com/real_G Warner. But I also think it's great to wait if you want to back Colombia, because I do think there's a good chance we see a half a goal underdog on the Colombian side. That plus 1/2 means you win your full bet with a draw, instead of only just 1/2 with plus 1/4 for those new to soccer betting, or just wanted that spelled out. In terms of what these teams do, so Argentina, of course, they have Messi, who doesn't defend, basically just runs up the field and then hangs up there, which is necessary because you need to keep defenses honest, and you got to prevent your center backs from getting too close to the line and basically squeezing the Argentinian side. But that does leave some questions defensively. The big question, I think, for this final is, can Colombia exploit that? I'm not necessarily sure they can. I think I'll get to Colombia in a second, but the return of James Rodriguez has basically put this team, has brought them to where they are. From an Argentinian point of view, they have, especially in a shootout, I don't know how you can bet against Argentina, because Emilio Martinez is incredible, intimidating, and also backs it up, and also an absolute clown fool, whatever you want to call it. But I love him. I'm so happy that he left Arsenal, because I don't really like big clubs or anything like that in Europe, and found his way to Aston Villa, and I'm really looking forward to them in Champions League this season. With that said, from the Colombian side, I guess before I leave Argentina, they've been the big favorite this whole tournament. Probably any big win that they've had, everyone would say, oh, it wasn't by enough, but they haven't had a lot of those. And I think that's been the biggest issue for Argentina so far, is that their play has not reached any sort of expectations, though their opponents have been very, very pragmatic. And that's going to be the big call, is if you think Colombia will play that way as well. You could argue they may certainly look like they have tried that in the past. But ultimately, I'll get to the Colombian side now. So James Rodriguez basically setting up a goal per match from a set piece. Those are low expected goal events, which is a lot of times how I grade my plays. How many expected goals does my team allow versus how much do they put up? Usually, since I only bet underdogs in the sport, I'm expected to come out on the wrong side of that tally. But the number and kind of how many I get is all big ideas here. I don't expect Colombia to have high expected goals in this final. They will have, I think, a big crowd in Miami, though. I think it's going to be a ton of Argentines as well. It's going to be great to see. And I just don't think there's going to be as big of a home court or home field advantage like we saw for the Colombians against a really small Uruguayan nation in Charlotte. I think that the Colombians will play defensively, if I had to guess, instead of playing an open game, to let Argentina really use their pace, athleticism, ability, and huge squad value to Colombia certainly are not as talented as Argentina. I'll say that. But I do think the unity that Colombia have shown in this tournament, their incredible unbeaten run of 28 matches in a row, I think it is now, that's been unreal, especially because they didn't qualify for the World Cup in Qatar and ultimately were so bad at scoring goals, like didn't score them for like international breaks at a time. And that made it so they didn't qualify for the World Cup because they couldn't score and they needed to win matches and couldn't do it because they just couldn't score. That has changed since James has come back into the side or into the national team. And a lot of it's been from set pieces, finding his big defenders and their heads in the box. I don't expect that to really be a likely scenario because though that does seem to be the way that Colombia will get goals, and they should have some set piece chances, and it'll probably be more of those than they will have like set up goals or like cutbacks. I mean, counterattacks certainly are going to be important. Luis Diaz is a maniac. He's so incredible, and what a great signing by Liverpool a few seasons ago. He was bursting on the scene when Colombia were really struggling to find any goals. He was basically doing everything for them and then some. And was very important against Uruguay as well, just basically being the lone attacker up front when they were down to 10 men and pushing the ball forward and getting fouls and all those sort of things. Thanks for coming into the live stream, by the way. If you got any questions, feel free to throw it in the comments. And if I can display them, I will. But I think that's going to be the biggest interest for me in this event is this Copa America final is how defensive will Colombia be? I expect they will be defensive. But I do think that they have the ability because Argentina with their current setup. I mean, they got a very small central defender who plays in England in Lisandro Martinez. And I just don't think they have a ton of size. And Colombia do have that. They also have the ability on a corner kick to pin Argentina back and not worry as much about counterattacks. Certainly that's a concern for them. But I think James Rodriguez finding ahead is probably the way that Colombia score low expected goals. Can't expect that to happen more than once, most likely. But I do think that gives Colombia a punching chance in this final. Trying to think if there's anything else that I guess. So I've and I can summarize again before I get to the ultimate best bet. So I don't think I have more to say about the Copa America. We're almost 32 minutes. I'm talking about two matches. So hopefully that's good for everyone. And of course, there's a 1-minute version coming on @thereal_G Warner on Instagram and on YouTube in the 1-minute real or short version. So if you want this in a 1 minute and get my best pick, get out of here. Please subscribe. And if you'd like all that sort of stuff, that'd be huge as well for the search rankings as I'm trying to grow this brand as big as possible. I think just to summarize before I get to the ultimate best bet, in terms of where I expect the number to move, I think England will get bet. So it's weird because it's favorites and over always, but we've seen under get bet a fair amount in this tournament or these summer tournaments, basically because the under has been so profitable. Thank you to all my subscribers who've been hinting that and pointing that out. And it's been a really great run this summer. But I do think that's something to consider. From a Spanish perspective, like I think they're better, but I just don't think they're going to get bet much because England dominates the money in these English-speaking books. Of course, I don't know how much people bet in Spain really. And honestly, I think there's a ton of bookmaker money that will be hitting in England and will be reflected through the lines globally in the marketplace. In terms of total in that one, hard to say. Hasn't been a ton of movement so far. I would, if you are an under player, I would not lose 2 to see 1 3/4, but I can't imagine we get there. I think we stay at 2. As for Colombia and Argentina, I would expect the favorite to continue to get bet as it has this entire time. Already up 8% on the to advance number or to lift the trophy. I think we might get a decently juiced, like a -115 or so if we're talking American odds. on the Colombians plus a half of a goal, which is very valuable. If they go to extra time, it means you've won your full bet. For the total, it's kind of jockeying between 2 and now 1 3/4 at Bet Online. I imagine there should be some pretty juiced 2s available at kickoff, but that's the biggest test to see if it hangs at 1 3/4. I can't imagine it'll get bet down to 1.5. That is almost unheard of, even in the worst offensive matches in La Liga in Spain, for example, as I wear a kit in La Liga on the side. Bam. But I think my biggest interest and expectation is that the unders are worth a look. So it's time to get into the ultimate best bet. Before I get there, if you could leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, and in that review, if you want to ask some questions about what we should cover in this next week of really dead periods, I'll be doing an NFL podcast to get you started on the season with that @A_Schnicker. Also, a baseball podcast coming up on Tuesday, really focused on futures and things of that nature for the second half of the baseball season, overvalued teams, undervalued, and such. With that, A Brooks Bets. We'll be doing that Tuesday night. Still not sure, but maybe Monday or Wednesday with at @A_Schnicker. Also, we'll be on Sunday night with Munaf Manji on the pregame.com podcast. And then back Thursday for the Friday restart of the second half of the Major League Baseball season. Hopefully I'll be healthy by then. I might sleep for the next 4 days because then it's time to get really prepped for a second half of Major League Baseball, the American football season, and of course the European soccer calendar is going to start really going as I'm already looking into futures and things of that nature, as that's been a really good part or business for me really lately. Other than that, any questions? If you throw a 5-star review or subscribe, that'd be the best way. Of course, at @the_real_G Warner on all platforms. Who would want that handle anyway? I guess it's unique or something like that. And then if you're not a member of my Patreon, check it out. Patreon.com/real_G Warner. Best spot to get all my plays, leans, write-ups across everything, all platforms, all things I put on everything go there. And ultimately, you can get stuff at a very, very low price compared to where you get it across the interwebs, and you get everything. When I put my plays up each night, my leans, when I lock in overnight, when I lock them in, you get a buzz. And so you'll know, and you get the price that I get. So you make sure that you're following along with me. If you're riding or if you want to fade, that's a good way too. Anything else I can think of after 37 minutes of doing this podcast? Probably not. So it's ultimately time to get into that ultimate best bet. Hey, this is the @real_G Warner on Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, and on YouTube. A little under the weather, but this is the Euro 2024 Copa America Final Sunday podcast. And this is the 1-minute YouTube short or Instagram reel at the @real_G Warner on both those platforms, where I give you my best bet from this episode discussed at length. We're not nearly 38 minutes, but this is the 1-minute version to get all you millennials, Gen Zs, or whatever, the short attention spans, just for looking for my best pick. So from the Euro 2024, my favorite bet is England, Spain under 2 goals. And in the Copa America, I like the Colombia side getting a half of a goal. It's probably where it'll be, but it's a quarter goal right now. I also like under 2, which is very expensive at the moment. If you're not a member of Patreon, check it out. Patreon.com/real_G Warner. Best spot for all my plays, leans, right across all sports. Get everything, get notifications, so you lock in the price that I get. For my ultimate best bet on this episode, I'm going to go with that Colombia-Argentina under 2 goals, as I don't expect a lot of scoring in the Copa America final. And that'll do it for this episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll, of course, read all the DMs and things of that nature. And if you want to discuss business opportunities, a lot of you have been hitting me up, and I'm trying to get to that as much as I can. Love everything I've been doing so far and hope to continue doing that even more going forward. So we'll see you in the next episode on the Betting Pitch. So make sure you subscribe at the @real_G Warner on YouTube, or Betting the Pitch on both Apple Podcasts and on the Spotify platforms. Subscribe there, and you'll make sure you don't miss any episodes. Get them as soon as they come out, fresh, hot off the presses. And I will talk to you all very soon in the next episode, likely focused on Major League Baseball tomorrow night.
Recording stopped.